now for our feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series.
Watson, touchdown! Hunter Renfrow.
He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Citadel baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers.
Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Monday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Find them at stokesvw.com. Find us on the JB and Goldwater app. You can download that for free in your phone, and you can watch and listen to every show in its entirety. You can also check out our season ticket package and much, much more by making sure that that is available. If you're watching, look to the right of your screen. That is Darren Goldwater. To the left of your screen is me, Jamie. We're here until 2 o'clock this afternoon. And in between now and then, it's a full boat. Mike Yuva at 12:30 with Watch Fox. We're going to get into some Super Bowl stuff with him, but also into this weekend's Carolina basketball game, their loss against Mississippi State, what that means, what to expect moving forward. Fans are frustrated. We know that. We're going to talk a lot about it, certainly. So looking forward to having Mike jump in. We've got Wes Mitchell at 1 o'clock today with Gamecock Central as well. Got some recruiting stuff to get to with him and much, much more in that conversation, some team notes. We got Debbie Antonelli today at 1:30. Debbie's going to preview tonight's South Carolina UConn top 5 matchup in stores. She is also calling the number 12 Oregon, number 9 Arizona game on ESPN2 at 7 o'clock. So probably get some notes out of that one as well. But there's nobody out there better than Debbie Antonelli to talk about this great matchup tonight between the Gamecocks and the Huskies. Carolina, of course, took them down last year in Columbia for the first time ever. We'll see if they can keep that streak going a little bit later on. Got some baseball stuff to get to today. Got some more football stuff to get to. It's a really, really jam-packed program. We hope you'll stick around. Across all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB. And at Darren Goldwater. With that being said, what's up, my friend?
I'm doing well. I had a feast yesterday. We had our quarantine crew that got together for a little pregame action, and then by the half, we were all kind of back in our own homes.
Yeah.
I made a platter of wings.
All right.
A buddy made ribs and wings. Another buddy wings. Another one buffalo chicken dip that was hot. Another friend made a cold buffalo chicken dip. So we ate really, really well yesterday.
Still like a lot of wings.
I'm still full. Yeah, I'm still full. Well, the food was better than the game.
Yeah,
it was.
Look, we'll kind of start with the Super Bowl here and wind our way into some hoops. Yeah, I mean, look, it was what it was. I mean, Brady, with his 7th Super Bowl win, everybody knows the stats by now. We're not going to get into all that. I'm going to double down on what some other folks I've heard last night. I really liked what Booger McFarland had to say after the game on ESPN. He said, look, everybody's going to talk about Brady, but, I mean, let's be honest. That defense is what won the game for Tampa.
Yep.
Of course, Brady, if he needed to do more down the stretch, he would have done it, I'm sure. But he didn't. He didn't have to. They were firmly in control of the football game, and defensively they were playing lights out. Mahomes was running around like a chicken with his head cut off. And the old man was like, not yet, son. Not yet. Here's the question, though, right? So everybody is asking this. Can Pat Mahomes ever reach 7? Is there anybody out there who can ever reach that number? Will this record ever be broken? guys, we don't know what the record's going to be.
Yeah.
Brady ain't done.
No,
And they're going to be the favorites to win it next year, folks.
they are among it. The early Vegas odds have the Chiefs and the Packers,
Yeah,
AFC,
forget
AFC, NFC.
Are you kidding me?
Those are the odds that came out last night.
No way.
That's all I'm saying right now. We don't know how many he's going to get, but I did like in the end. I mean, you didn't even have to ask him post game. He said, I'm coming back.
Yeah.
Ain't over. Coming back.
Yeah.
And, they're having fun. Him and Gronk are living it up. The women in their lives are emulating the guys, the two, Giselle and I don't know Gronk's girlfriend's name, but they got
Does
together.
he have one girlfriend?
He has apparently he's a really good, like, clean living guy. He just has this persona as a partier. But anyway,
okay.
He's got one girlfriend, and him and Giselle on the field afterwards were kind of duplicating that walking to or from the plane thing with Gronk and Brady. So that's fun to see. Look, Brady was a surgeon on the opening few drives, and then the defense took over. And that was the story. The fact that the Bucks, who have been blitzing like crazy most of the year, I think they blitzed 5 times last night.
Yeah.
And they still had constant pressure on Mahomes. One of my favorite stats, and I'm going to throw up a graphic for this. One of my favorite stats, if you're watching, look at these lines. The top lines are Pat Mahomes scrambles, not intentional scrambles. When he and Brady were in the shotgun, Brady is the bottom little squiggle thing.
Okay.
When they're in the shotgun, these are distances run prior to the pass. Mahomes ran 468 yards prior to throwing the football from a shotgun snap. Brady ran 37 yards. Mahomes was running for his life. Add in all the other snaps. Mahomes ran for almost 500 yards pre-throw. 500.
And he still made a lot of great throws doing that. Like the one he was headed to the ground. He threw that ball in the end zone and hit the dude in the helmet. He's a hell of a player.
The Chiefs didn't help themselves. Early in the game, Kelsey dropped a third down pass that resulted in a Bucs touchdown. I mean, the Chiefs did not help themselves. They didn't help out a gimpy Pat Mahomes. They didn't make any excuses, but they didn't help themselves.
No, they didn't. They didn't. I mean, everything in this game pointed right to Tampa almost from the start and winning it. By the way, congratulations to Ryan Suckup and Kobe Smith, former Gamecocks. Congratulations to former Clemson Tiger Bradley Pinion, their punter as well. 3 Palmetto State alums have Super Bowl rings this year, which is awesome to see. Let me give you a couple other little nuggets from this game last night, all right? 12 former FCS players now have Super Bowl rings as well, 12 former players at the FCS level on the roster for Tampa. So it just goes to show you a lot of those FCS guys are getting to the league and they're playing well and got a chance to win a Super Bowl just like anybody else. 12 of them. That's pretty neat. I found this quote to be really, or not quote, tweet to be really neat last night as well. The first time that Tom Brady ever played in a Super Bowl, the first year, here are some of the businesses that advertised in that game. Did you see this tweet?
I did.
It's pretty cool. This is the first Super Bowl Brady ever played in. These were some of the businesses that advertised: AOL, Blockbuster,
Jesus,
Radio Shack, Circuit City,
dead,
Comp USA,
I think dead,
Sears,
dead,
Hot Jobs,
I
don't even know who that
assuming
was.
Dead,
Yahoo's still around.
Yeah, definitely.
Voice Stream Wireless.
Is that one of those things where you like plug something into your phone jack?
I don't know.
And it becomes a
I didn't
phone
know what
line?
it was.
Yeah, I'm not even sure.
And Gateway Computers. Those were some of the businesses that advertised during Brady's first Super Bowl. And something else I found really interesting last night as well. This is a tweet from Adam Schefter. I made sure to print this out today.
Yep.
Quote, when Tom Brady became a free agent last March, a mere 2 teams aggressively pursued him, the Chargers and the Buccaneers. Others made calls, but seemingly no real push. How did Brady not draw the same level of interest across the league that Deshaun Watson has now? That's a great question.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, clearly, Tom Brady wasn't done, and he was trying to tell people that, like, hey, look, I can go win another couple of these things somewhere. Nobody wanted to listen except Tampa and San Diego, and he, of course, chose Tampa. A couple of places with really nice weather.
Yes.
A little bit warmer in Tampa than San Diego, but nonetheless, and that's where he ends up. If any, I don't know who the other teams were who, like, quote, made calls.
Right.
We're like, nah,
a little feeler.
We're not in it for him. We'll go with, Sam Darnold, or whatever. Like, dude.
it shows you how much things change on a day-to-day, I mean, really minute-by-minute basis. If this was the market last year for quarterbacks and for teams, then Brady would have a higher demand. Well, I think you would have a somewhat equal demand. Deshaun Watson's got plenty more time left, and that's what scared people away from Brady. Is it a one and done? How much time does he have left? Is he really tailing off? There were questions, but it's still Tom Brady. So the market for Watson probably is still a touch higher, but if they're going against each other, they benefit each other.
Yeah.
If it was happening this year that Brady was on the market and Watson, who's apparently not on the market according to the Texans, but is.
Yeah, I mean, Tampa, and I don't think, too, until this run. By the way, remember that Brady beat Breeze, Rodgers, and Mahomes on the way to this year's Super Bowl win, okay?
How cool is that?
So, but I think not many people outside of the diehard NFL fans or Buccaneers fans actually knew. Great point by Nathan there. No income tax in Florida. You're right. Yeah, a little bit different out there in San Diego, California. I don't think anybody actually realized how good the support staff around Brady was.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about Gronk and adding AB and, Fournette, of course, showed up in the postseason. I'm talking about defensively. I mean, you got guys like dudes who, a few years ago, we were like, oh, man, this guy's going to be a stud, and then gets kind of, like Ndamukong Suh, all right? Kind of runs his name through the mud a little bit, has some kind of bad moments in the NFL.
Yeah.
But and there's just a bunch of other guys. The Winfield guy who got penalized at the end there for throwing up the peace sign at Tyreek Hill, which I agree with Tony Romo on the broadcast. There's no room for that, but hell, I didn't have any problem with it. That's what Tyreek Hill does to everybody all the time, right?
Yep.
He got in his face. He didn't care. Who cares what that 15-yard penalty means there? He didn't kick him.
Yeah.
I mean, so, I think we figured out that there was a really good support staff around him. And I also think, to your point a minute ago, like others were more interested in investing long-term in quarterbacks. The Bucs weren't. They weren't interested in winning a Super Bowl. And they're like, okay, who can we get? Oh, wait, Brady? Yeah, we'll take him.
It's crazy.
We'll take him.
It's crazy that the pieces, the defense is largely what it was last year. The offensive pieces are the same, except Brady, Fournette, who came on at the end, Gronk, who became a huge piece of this, and obviously had 2 touchdowns, and now he and Brady have one of those records of most connections for a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
The record, yeah.
Yeah, but other than that, it's largely the same team. It's Tom Brady's influence. It's Tom Brady asserting himself when he comes into a locker room and raising the standard of everybody around him.
Yeah.
It's
there's no question.
That is, I think, the lasting legacy of Brady will be his ability to get players to play to his level. Yes, he's ready in the biggest moments, but his ability to get other people ready with him is his lasting legacy in my eyes.
Right. It was fascinating to watch. It really, truly was. It was fascinating to watch. Tom Brady now has 7. All right. Certainly not going to get out of this Super Bowl conversation without telling everybody how great Eric Church was. He was obviously magnificent. We all know that. Him and Jasmine Sullivan, just unbelievable. I actually, everybody knows I'm an Eric Church guy. I get that. I actually thought those two together were magnificent.
It was good.
I thought it was really good. It was certainly, it wasn't a traditional anthem that we all know and love. There was a little bit of a twist on it. Clearly, Church had to put a little bit of a twist on it because he is, as he says, a stylist, not a vocalist. She is a vocalist. He's not going to compete with her. So I thought it was I thought it was one of the better anthems, regardless of the fact that it was Eric Church. He had 2 totally different genres out there, meshing very well. I thought it was wonderful. I thought the commercials once again were, whatever.
Yeah.
I did. All right. I did pick 4 out. Sure, people will disagree with me. I thought the best commercial itself was the Cheetos commercial with Ashton Kutcher, Mila Kunis, and Shaggy.
Yeah, and Shaggy. Yeah,
I thought that was the best one.
Yep.
The most well messaged, like, what commercial will we remember the message from? Zaxby's. We're in this chicken sandwich thing now, all these other little chicken sandwiches, we got the big one.
Okay.
I thought that was the best. I thought that was the boldest message in
that one
ad.
didn't even stick with me.
Really?
Okay, yeah.
Oh man, I saw that, and I saw the sandwich and the message of like, "Hey, we're in the war with you."
Yeah.
All you other little chicken sandwiches, we're bringing the big
better.
dog.
Okay.
some people are going to argue this because of who it was and what he said previously. But I thought the most inspirational message certainly was the Jeep commercial with Bruce Springsteen. The thing about it is Bruce Springsteen, if you are on the political side of this, he's been very political over the last couple of years. So some people view him as divisive and things of that nature. I'm not getting into that. All I'm saying is
you like the commercial.
The message itself, I'm not talking about who delivered the message. The message itself and the commercial and that church they're talking about in the middle of Kansas, like that was a really neat message. Let's meet in the middle of that whole thing. So, give them props to that. Look, if I go back like 9 years, you probably remember this. I think it was 2012. The best commercial I ever saw, I literally had tears in my eyes, and I was also watching the Super Bowl with a couple of neighbors, and he had just gotten back from overseas. But the Jeep commercial that year of We Are Now Whole is one. Oprah narrated it. I don't know if you remember. There was a 2-minute commercial they played right at the start of halftime.
No.
And it was like the most, oh God. And then I looked over and the wife of my neighbor's crying and he's holding her and he had literally just gotten back from being overseas on.
So it's impactful
on deployment.
Yeah. And your scene made it.
Yeah.
Your scene for me, commercials generally don't stick with me during the Super Bowl. I'm not someone who's watching the Super Bowl for the commercials.
Yeah.
I use the commercials in the Super Bowl the same way I use commercials in any other game. I'm going to get up. I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to go up to the fridge. I'm going to go get more food. I'm going to have a conversation with someone. Whereas during the game, when people are talking, I really would just rather them shut up.
Yeah.
And I want to watch the game.
Yeah.
So I really am tuning everybody else out around me. And then at the commercials, when people want everyone else to shut up, that's when I want to talk. I don't care about the commercials. I want to watch the game.
Yeah.
So some stick with me. Most
I like the commercials. I didn't care for the halftime show.
No,
personally,
that was horrendous.
Yeah, I didn't care for that. The biggest letdown, though, once again, like 10th straight year, was Bud Light. I mean, I don't know what they're doing, but their commercials suck. Look, man, let me give Anheuser-Busch some just really simple advice here. This is very simple. Horses and puppies. That's it. That's all you got to do. Horses and puppies every year. Figure out a different way to put horses and puppies in there. You're gonna win it every year.
And you're gonna get the girls for Bud Light, and you're gonna get the guys and the masculine side.
Puppies, man.
Yeah,
it's very simple.
Nice and simple.
There you go. All right, that's our Super Bowl recap.
It's also the title of today's show. Little did you know,
horses and puppies.
Yeah, now it is.
12:17 on a Monday afternoon. Mike Yuva ahead at 12:30. We got Debbie Antonelli at 1:30 today. She'll preview a huge matchup tonight. Top 25 for women comes out at 1 today. So we'll see where South Carolina and UConn fall. Remember, Louisville lost last week. Do the Gamecocks slide into the top roll? Well, I don't know. We'll see. We could have a 1-2 matchup tonight, realistically.
I can tell you on the graphic that I made, it says 1 versus 2. I am assuming that Carolina will be 1 and UConn will be 2, but I could be wrong.
And it could be short-lived. We'll see what Debbie has to say about that coming up in a little while. Wes Mitchell ahead at 1 o'clock as well. Also, horrible news last night. ESPN's Pedro Gomez passed away unexpectedly at the age of 58. It is now come to light over the last 12 hours or so that Pedro Gomez, one of his best friends is South Carolina's Frank Martin. And Frank was asked about him today. Frank is just about to wrap up his press conference previewing the Alabama Crimson Tide tomorrow night coming into Colonial Life Arena. And Frank said he and Pedro Gomez were very close, grew up in the same community in Miami. They played baseball together, and they also worked together at a bank. So they've known each other a long time. And Frank Martin, as many are, heartbroken by the news of Pedro Gomez, who I personally think is, if not the best, one of the 2 or 3 best baseball reporters in the game.
He busted onto the scene, and he had been in the game, in the scene for a long time. But he became someone that the national sports fan knew when Bonds became Bonds in San Francisco.
That's right.
And the home run chase. And his job was covering Barry Bonds. And it wasn't covering the Giants. It was covering Barry Bonds. And it was covering Balco. And it was covering the home run chase. And that's when he became the national guy that he is to all of us. What I have enjoyed, the stories from those who knew him and how genuinely good of a guy he was. There are multiple stories that I've now seen when covering World Series. He would scoop up the corks from the champagne bottles in the locker room, and he would have them with him. Wow, and if he happened to meet a fan, like a random person, and he strikes up a conversation, he'd reach into his bag. Yeah, you seem like a real Cubs fan. Boom, drop a Cub cork right down. There was someone who works at ESPN who got a bunch of Cub corks from him. There was a story from Howard Bryant. Bryant is a well-known media figure who said he was 24 years old. He's covering Tony La Russa and the A's. Mm-hmm. And he writes a story, good story. He writes something about Eckersley. They lose the game. Eckersley didn't blow the save because it wasn't a save situation. But they lost the game, and the headline writer put in the headline that it was a blown save. So La Russa, in front of a ton of media in his office the next day, just chastises this 24-year-old Howard Bryant, going off on him, telling him, that he's got to do better, and just ripping him in front of everybody. And Pedro Gomez, who had never met Howard Bryant. Pedro never knew of Howard Bryant at the time. Bryant's 24. Pedro's a veteran at this point. Basically jumped in and told La Russa to shut up. He knows how the game works. He knows that Bryant didn't write the headline, and he stuck up for a little young reporter, Howard Bryant. It's stories like that tell you why the sports world is kind of rocked a little bit here by this one.
Certainly. I mean, that's a great story. And Pedro Gomez has been an honest reporter as well, which is something I've really, I understand baseball, and I know somebody on TV is telling me something that I'm like, yeah, that's BS. He's not. I mean, he is one of the best. So rest in peace and all the prayers in the world to the Gomez family. This was unexpected. Certainly something that is very difficult to even fathom right now for that family. His son played baseball at Arizona, by the way,
and has been, I believe, in the Red Sox system. Pedro was in town at some point. Well, not last year, but then the year prior at the River Dogs because his son was here.
Well, I think he was here also covering A-Rod.
He was here covering A-Rod as well.
Whenever that was.
Yep.
It's been a while now.
Yeah, because that was all tied into the Balco thing.
Yeah. The new AP Top 25 poll is also out right now on the men's side. No shocker that Gonzaga is still 1, Baylor is still 2. Michigan has moved up to number 3, and Ohio State from 7 to 4. Villanova at 5, rounding out the top 10 is Illinois. Jumps from 12 to 6. Nice week last week for the Illini. Texas Tech 7 from 13. How about that? Houston has dropped to 8. Virginia at 9. And look who's number 10. Missouri. The highest ranked SEC team are the Missouri Tigers, just ahead of Alabama. Bama's 11. They'll come to town tomorrow night to take on South Carolina. And of course, the Gamecocks are coming off of another rough loss in college hoops. This time it was to Mississippi State on a Saturday afternoon, Darren. And so
you had a fun Saturday afternoon, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, I didn't think when I sent the tweet that I sent that I would get as many angry responses. But of course I did probably call out a lot of those people by virtue of saying coming out of their basements. So obviously they did. And they attacked me quickly and saying that I was way wrong in what I stated in my tweet. But all I said was, I don't care if John Wooden was coaching that team. They weren't going to win it because they couldn't hit wide open shots. I mean, did you see anything different from what I saw?
No,
that's true.
I'll tell you what I saw that was encouraging at the beginning of the game. I thought they were moving well at the beginning of the game. We talked about the win prior to that when they beat Florida. The just looking alive, looking like they had some bounce in their step. They looked like that. And then it hit a wall and they could not hit a shot. And that comes to your point.
Yeah, it was
they're in the position and they're just not hitting the shot.
It was a horrible shooting day for South Carolina. Horrible shooting day. 19 of 61, 31% from the floor, 20% from long range. Guys, they shot 70% from the free throw line. I mean, that's not excellent, but it's not terrible. It's not 60%. It was only 2 percentage points less than what Mississippi State shot. And, this just goes, I mean, it's nobody can figure this out. I mean, honestly, nobody can figure this out. When Seventh Woods actually had another respectable game, 4 of 8, 10 points, only 1 turnover. So in his last 2 games, they combined 2 turnovers.
That's right.
Really good for him. But AJ Lawson and Jermaine Couisnard continued to not shoot it well. They were 5 of 21 combined, and Lawson has had some good games. Don't get me wrong, but 5 of 21, just 2 of 11 from long range. Those two combined for only 17 points. Minaya didn't have a point. I mean, he didn't hit a shot. I mean, it's frustrating. And what's happening right now is folks are determining the future and fate of this basketball program game to game.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is, should we or shouldn't we fire Frank Martin? That's where the conversation goes after every single game, which I think is unfair. I think that in basketball and in baseball specifically, and for the most part in football, but these are different sports. These seasons we should determine what comes next after the entire season is played.
Mhm.
And I say this all the time because there are conference tournaments to get to. You don't know what can happen in those. There is an expanded national tournament to play in, and for teams that qualify, you don't know what's going to happen there. So it's always better to look at it in its entirety. Look back, don't make crazy mid-season decisions and things like that, which that's what fans always want to do. Something bad happens, somebody misses a shot, fire the guy. The arguments that I got were, well, isn't it's his job to recruit shooters? Well, maybe he's not developing. I would actually argue the opposite point of that. I think he develops well. Frank Martin's system is a junior and senior system. Now, if we want to argue whether his system is right for South Carolina, we can argue that. That's fine. That's fine. That's fair. That's very fair. But it's a junior and senior system. You don't have freshmen and sophomores that just come in and flourish in the Frank Martin system. It doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
The kid that went number 1 last year in the draft, who went to Georgia and I think he was the SEC Player of the Year as a freshman, you're not going to have that at South Carolina. You're just not. That is not Frank Martin's system. He develops players. How do I know that? Well, Chris Silva's in the league. So is Sindarius Thornwell. Dwayne Notice is still playing in Canada. Mike Kotsar is a star overseas.
Yep.
PJ Dozier had a lot to be desired about his game before he played for Frank Martin. He probably would have been better staying one more year and being a much higher draft pick, and he will tell you that. So, and then when you look at this team, AJ Lawson, there is a question to be asked about the development of some of the players on this team. There's no doubt. AJ Lawson is a guy who has developed. Now, I also think that his game is limited in certain areas, and he needs help from other guys. He's not getting that. I'll tell you who the one guy is who is this team. If you want to talk about development, Keyshawn Bryant. I mean, Keyshawn Bryant came to South Carolina as literally the next Ronaldo Balkman. He was an athlete and nothing else. The guy can shoot. He rebounds. He blocks shots well. I mean, he has transformed his game. He shoots free throw. He was 5 of 7 from the free throw line on Saturday. He wasn't doing any of that when he first got to South Carolina. He was just an athlete running up down the floor. The development is there if you can stick around and stay in the program for 3 or 4 years. But I'm not bothered by people wanting to know, is this good enough, or should Frank Martin continue to be the head coach at South Carolina? I just think that question needs to be asked at the end of the year as opposed to right now.
This whole conversation has bothered me from the very beginning of, should Frank Martin even be on the hot seat? He should not. And I'm not even going to go with some of the numbers from the floor or the development of guys. You have to understand where the program is, and you have to understand what this program has been, and have the expectations that apply. A good buddy and I got into a conversation. He is as much of a Carolina, specifically hoops fan, but overall Carolina fan as really anybody I know. And we went down some of the numbers. South Carolina has been in the SEC with 29 or 30 seasons. Yeah. 7 times they have won double-digit games. Frank has 4 of those 7
right.
in 29 or 30 years, right? 5 times in his 8 years, they've got at least 12 total wins. Or no, I'm sorry, 16 plus wins 5 times in his tenure. That's happened 12 times total.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The best seasons of South Carolina history are basically now. They're Frank Martin. His consistent run right now of non-losing seasons, which is 6 in a row prior to this year.
Yeah.
It's the best it's ever been.
It's the best
by a lot.
It's the best since Frank McGuire, and that tenure ended in 1980.
Yeah.
It's
so we're
40
going back 30 years here.
40 years.
40 years if you go to that. So the conversation of should we fire Frank Martin is baffling to me. It comes because the team is struggling, because there was a Final Four run. It took him 3 years, got him to the NIT. Year 4, now you're into the Final Four. You're still having 2 years later, you finish in the top half of the SEC.
Yeah.
Now this year is off the rails. I get that. But you have to, if you look at Frank Martin, it's not right. he is not right. And I'm not going to put myself in the doctor's shoes. I don't know exactly what's going on. He's been upfront and saying it's kicked his behind. But this season, you got to give him a pass here. You have to.
Oh,
this season is not one to be saying fire Frank and don't fire Frank, riding a roller coaster of game after game. It makes no sense. It's not fair to him. It's not fair to the program. And I'm saying that not as a Carolina fan at all, just a college basketball fan. If you look at the numbers, it's easy to look at them, rattle them off, and say, all right, so who are you going to get?
Right.
Who's going to go? Who's going to come in after this type of year and do better than that right off the rip?
Right.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
No, it's not happening right off the rip.
Well, and I have some numbers to add to that. We got to hit a timeout. So we do have Mike Uva coming up with Watch Fox, and he's going to be a part of this conversation as well. But your numbers are right, and I've got more to add to that as well. So hang tight. The JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. We'll be right back.
Is your old car really scary? Does it look dreadful or smell awful? Don't be frightened. There's never been a better time to trade in your spooky old car. Stokes Volkswagen just received a new shipment of the VW Atlas and VW Crossport. But here's what makes that even sweeter. Every new Atlas and Crossport is $3,000 off MSRP. Plus, every 2020 Volkswagen is available with 0% financing. That's right. You get both the huge discount and 0% financing. So if you want to play trick or treat at other dealerships, that's okay. Come see us at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or visit stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Plus tax tag includes $399.50 closing fee. Offer. Okay.
What's up, everyone? JB here. Want to tell you about my friends in the Pest Control, as we do every and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days, always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about Mcfadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
Family Bingo Night is back. All 3 Dog and Duck locations. Every Monday from 6 to 8 is the perfect time to bring the kids, have dinner, and play bingo. They've upped the prizes with retail store gift cards, gas cards, in-house cash cards, and kid-friendly gift cards like Nintendo, pizza, App Store, and more. Thanks for supporting local businesses like the Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
What's up, everybody? This is South Carolina singer-songwriter Patrick Davis, and I might live in Nashville, Tennessee now, but guess what? I can always keep up with the news back in South Carolina because I've got the JB and Goldwater Show. Thank you, JB and Darren, for being live, loud, and online.
Your love lifting me higher.
All right, 12:33. Welcome back. Monday afternoon on the JB and Goldwater Show. February the 8th. Everybody argues this should be a national holiday. For Super Bowl.
Should be.
They should just play the Super Bowl on Saturday. And then we'll all be off on Sunday, and life is much easier.
Yeah, I at least the Super Bowl gets over with.
Yeah.
It kicks at 6:30,
right?
6:30, whatever it was last night.
That's what I said.
Yeah, it's over at what 10:30, whatever time it ended.
Yep.
Yeah, it's tolerable.
I know the NCAA should take notice. Football, they should kick college football's national championship game off on a Saturday at like 7:00,
not 9.
Yeah, whatever. That doesn't matter. This guy's up all hours of the night. It's Mike Uva with Watch Fox. What's up, brother?
What's going on, guys?
Oh, just another day of arguing around here, right? No, I'm just kidding. Oh, Mikey. First of all, I know you're a proud Pats fan today, even though Brady doesn't play for him anymore.
Yeah, I mean, for 2 reasons. I mean, first and foremost, I'm extremely excited for my former college teammate. I'm wearing my Assumption sweatshirt today. First Hound to ever win a Super Bowl. I had a chance to play with him for a couple seasons over at Assumption. He's the long snapper for the Buccaneers. So anytime you want to talk about these amazing kicks by Ryan Suckup, it doesn't happen without starting with the long snapper for Assumption. So let's just make sure we get that clear. But no, all jokes aside, I'm very happy for him. And then for Tom Brady, I mean, it's weird, man. I mean, all 3 touchdowns in the first half had to do with former Patriot players. We'll even give Antonio Brown a little credit, even though he was there for just a cup of coffee. But Yeah, it was weird, but I mean, I'm always going to pull for Tom Brady, and any Patriots fan that thinks otherwise. I mean, look, Belichick wanted him out. I mean, if he wanted to stay there. If Belichick didn't push him out, he would have been there. I don't know if they would have been able to have the type of success knowing that the defense that Tampa had this year and the weapons around him on offense. But bottom line is the guy's 43 years old. He has 7 rings, and he is not done yet, which is scary.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? Darren, what's your name?
Derek, Darren, whatever you want to go with.
We were talking about this at the top of the show about, the some of the questions you hear now are, well, has anybody been able to catch 7? Could Mahomes get to 7? I'm like, well, now wait a second. This dude isn't done. I mean, he might win 8. He might win 9. I look, I don't think he's got, after last night, that answer of to Nance, no, we're coming back. That was like, not only are we coming back next year, but we're just going to keep coming back till we stop winning.
I'll tell you this, and I'm sure they're going to be talking about it around 2 o'clock on Boston Sports Talk Radio, which is going to be just electric today. But, I mean, Super G, as they call her, Giselle, she's happy. She's down in a warm climate. She's not in Brooklyn, Massachusetts. She doesn't have to worry. Brookline, Massachusetts. She doesn't have to worry with the snow, and, she's able to be down south. She's happy. So Super G is happy. So why not? Why not just keep playing? I'll tell you what. Next year, if there was any doubt that you thought he wasn't going to come back next year, you're out of your mind, because next year the Buccaneers travel to Foxborough to take on the Patriots. So I can just, and I think I put out one of the tweets with the GIF Belichick throwing the phone from earlier this year. Linda Holiday, his girlfriend, I can only imagine, hey, Bill, here's the score. It's 14-3. 2 Patriot players have already scored, Brady to Gronk. So I'm sure Belichick, if he was not watching last night, he was getting updates, and I can only imagine what is going through his head getting ready for next season now.
Yeah, no question, man. Over or under on hours of sleep for Gronk? 3.
Ooh. Under. Yeah. I mean, he's a veteran. He's done this. This is his 4th Super Bowl ring. I mean, that's something else that gets kind of lost with it, with Brady winning 7. I mean, this is his 4th title. And for Gronk, he retired a year ago. I mean, a lot of people didn't think he was going to come back. And he comes back, and he played a big role, especially with the blocking up front for Tampa.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah, and the first 2 touchdowns, or 2 of the first 3.
Yeah. Oh yeah, those 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. Yeah, those were good too.
Let's not forget about those. Yeah, he is something. I remember when he was in town a few years ago. He was hanging out at the Windjammer. He judged the bikini contest.
Yes, he did.
Out at the Windjammer a couple years ago.
That doesn't sound like Gronk.
No,
not at all.
No. He literally was like on Folly one day, and then.
Unbelievable.
Like an hour later, he was judging the bikini contest at the Windjammer on the Isle of Palms. I'm like, how the hell did he get from there to there in time for that to start in that amount of time? But he did.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's Gronk.
He's Gronk. Yeah. That's all right. We got our Gronk here, Mike Uva, joining us at 12:38 on Monday afternoon. Mike, I do want to shift with you to Carolina basketball, though, because they got a big game tomorrow night against Alabama. But this is, here the up and down continues, obviously, here in 2021 with Frank Martin's squad. 3-5, 5-7, coming off of this loss to Mississippi State. And I know that you were on the press or on the Zoom conference with him just a little while ago. What sucks about that loss is it's coming off of a big win, and this is, they beat Georgia, they lose to Vanderbilt, and everybody expected them, I think, to go to Nashville and win the game.
Yeah,
and then you beat Florida. You lose Mississippi State. You're coming home. People expect you to come home and win this game, and then the real challenge starts tomorrow against the Tide. So it's up and down, up and down. They just can't put their finger on the pulse. What did you learn from that press conference today with Frank?
Well, what I learned is that Frank right now and this team, they're just trying to they're just trying to do whatever they can to make things feel as normal as possible. And that's not an excuse, because every team in the country is dealing with the same thing, right? But at the same time, too, it just seems like there's a couple, I don't want to say pieces, but pieces to the puzzle in terms of just trying to make this thing work. Because, look, I've always been one person this season. I've been a person all season long where I've said that I think COVID has had an impact on South Carolina. I think a lot of people, rational people, would say that, right? But they don't want to say that that is the main reason why this team is not playing as well as they do. They want to blame Frank. They want to blame this. They want to blame that. Where I will agree with people is when you go back to last year, it's been over a year, or almost around a year, since South Carolina has won back-to-back SEC games. So that part of it kind of is like, whoa. So trying to find any type of rhythm That's been an issue for not just this season, but going back to last season. They just have not been able to play consistent basketball. And like I said, we can look at COVID this year, and I do believe that's a big reason of why they're not playing as in sync as they should be. But this has kind of been the formula, and this has kind of just been the what has happened to South Carolina going back to last year. So look, big opportunity against Alabama, just like it was a week ago against Florida. You need to be able to find any type of rhythm, any type of consistency. And if you're able to get a win here, does that mean that South Carolina is turning the page? I don't think you can say that, just because this is what they've shown over the last year, not just this season. So a big opportunity tomorrow night. If you can get a win against Alabama, the roller coaster just continues. And if you don't, I'm sure there'll be even more people tweeting and going on message boards saying that Frank needs to go.
Yeah, I mean, the question right now is, what are they playing for, right? They're 3-5, they're 5-7 overall. So what are they playing for? I don't think they're playing for anything other than the game that they're in, and they're just going to have to see where this road takes them.
And that's it. I mean, because some people are trying to get caught up in terms of, do they still have a shot to make the tournament? Look, put that to the side. Honestly, put that to the side. Where everything, based on what we've seen this season with this team, on top of the fact of losing a guy like Frank, on top of the fact that, look at Frank. Frank said today that he's feeling as good as he's felt in quite some time since coming down with COVID for a second time. But Frank's banged up, man. He lost a dear friend today or this past weekend with Pedro Gomez, a guy that he grew up with in Miami. And, he's hurting. He's hurting a lot. And this isn't to say that other people don't deal with issues in life. That's not to make any type of excuses, but Frank's that type of guy, whether you're a fan of the Gamecocks, whether you're a fan of Frank, whether you're a fan of Carolina sports in general, you just don't like to see a guy like that down in the dumps. It just doesn't, he's the type of guy that when he goes in a room, he can just light up a room. That's just not who he is right now. And you could just tell it's just taking a toll on him. Everything, not just basketball, but everything in terms of his personal life is just taking a toll on him on this team. And I think it's hurting him just seeing the personal impact this year has had on his players as well.
Yeah, and the best thing I could ask Carolina fans to do is support this team through the year, and let's look back at it at the end of the season and figure out exactly what happened, what went wrong, what needs to be fixed, and things like that. And I know that you retweeted this thing that I put out on Saturday, and I took a lot of heat for it. And all I was saying was I didn't care if John Wooden was coaching that team.
Yep.
They weren't going to win because they couldn't hit shots. And, Frank can't develop. Well, that's not true, actually, at all. Look, Mike, basketball, okay? This is a system that you develop in. It's a 3 and 4 year system. You're not going to come in and be a freshman superstar. You might have a few nice games, might have a few nice plays, you might have some highlights. You're not going to be the consistent guy in a Frank Martin system your first year, for that matter, your second year, but your third year and your fourth year, all you got to do is look at the track record. You figure that out quickly. He developed Silva. He's developed Bryant. He developed Codestar. He developed Thornwell. He developed Notice. He developed DJ Dozier. He developed what was the dude's name that the crazy Michael Carrera. These are guys who've had nice pro. They might not all be NBA superstars, but they've had nice pro careers. They've made money. And he has developed guys. Well, and then the next argument is, well, you have to recruit shooters. Well, I think he has recruited shooters. Isn't AJ Lawson one of the best shooters in the league? But they're not shooting consistently every night. And then I saw another argument. Well, Frank has never had a good shooting team. That's always been the problem. Alabama is 222nd in the country right now in field goal percentage, guys, and they're a top 11 program in the nation. That's not all what it comes down to. The ebbs and flows of games change. And you got to be able to hit open shots. But this lunacy out there, Mike, that his job is being judged on every single game that's played is just bonkers.
You just have a bunch of bobos out there that just want to be like, all right, get rid of Frank. And this is the reason why, X, Y, Z. And I can tell you right now, if South Carolina baseball struggles, those same bobos will be saying the same thing about Kingston. That's just where we've got to, okay? I understand, South Carolina fans, I understand you're frustrated. You should be frustrated. You don't want to see, I don't want to say losers, but you don't want to see losing programs. I don't blame you. A lot of you guys spend a lot of money to support these teams. I understand that. But with that being said, this situation right now with basketball is not the same in comparison to Will Musch. All right, just stop that. Because what's going to happen is we're going to go into baseball season and you're going to carry that same energy if Kingston and this baseball team start to struggle. That's just the reality of it. Now, at some point, do you have to draw the line in the sand and make a decision in terms of keeping someone and moving on from someone? Absolutely. There was no question, especially what we saw in terms of the fight, the lack of having fight with football, that you had to move on from Will Muschamp. I totally agree. With this right now with basketball, let's just look at this one game in particular. One game. Defense was an issue for South Carolina the weeks prior, right? Giving up nearly 100 points in 2 games, something that Frank Martin had never done in his coaching career, going back to Kansas State. Now, of course, Vandy came up a couple points short of that. My point being is this. They have been able to fix defense. They've been able to adjust and be able to fix that defense. And it looked pretty good for the most part against Mississippi State. They had some letdowns in big situations, and I guess you can equate that to third down in football. They just weren't able to get off the field. They gave up too many big opportunities in Mississippi State late in that game. The offense was just atrocious. 31% from the field. In the first half, 3 of your biggest scorers, the guys that should be your biggest scorers, A.J. Lawson, Jermaine Couisnard, oh my goodness, I'm blanking right now. Justin Minaya. They shot 0 for 11 from the field. 0 for 11. I mean, How are you going to beat any team? Never mind Mississippi State, but how do you expect to beat any team when you're not able to get those 3 guys going? And Minaya, for whatever reason, because I'm a big fan of his, for whatever reason, ever since that injury, he just has not been the same player, man. He just has not been the same player. That shot just is not dropping for him. I hope it can get going, because they need him to, and they just have not been able to find any scorers from that starting 5 consistently. Even a guy like A.J. Lawson, I mean, he wasn't able to get going until the second half, and you just can't have that if you want to have any hopes of winning in this league.
That's right, and we've all watched these guys hit shots, okay, over the last few years. We know that it's there, and it's the inconsistency. And I'll say this too, all right, the expectations for this program, Mike, changed when they made that run to the Final Four. They changed. I totally get it. Like, people now expect more out of Carolina basketball. But let me reel off some numbers here. Over the last 5 years, I'm not including this year because the season isn't complete. We don't know what the final numbers are going to be. But over the last 5 seasons, South Carolina is 3rd in the SEC in total SEC wins. 3rd behind Kentucky and Florida. They're tied with Tennessee, 51 wins in the league in a 5-year stretch. In the Southeastern Conferences, they've been a member of it, Mike. They've played 29 years, 29. You know how many winning seasons they've had in the league? 9 of them. All right. Frank Martin's got 4 of those in the last 5 years. Okay. Just FYI, I'm talking about in the league itself here. Okay. Now, the big thing with all of this is, and by the way, they're averaging over 20 wins a season, which is the best stretch since 1969 to 1974. And that was under Frank McGuire. Okay. We're talking about 50 years almost.
That guy was pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. So here is, if I have any frustration with Carolina basketball, it's this. It's that 1, 2, sometimes 3, but generally it's just 1 or 2 dumbfounded losses that happen every year.
Yeah.
And I think that's the conversation that needs to be had. At the end of the year, Frank and Ray, when they get together, that should be the first conversation about the team itself is, what do we need to do to prevent these 1 or 2 losses that have, because if you didn't have 1 or 2 of them that clanged you in 2015, 16, and then last year, even though they got cut short, you had 1 or 2 of them that clanged you then. You're talking about 3 NCAA tournament appearances, and the guy's a hero.
And I don't like doing the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. And, if I had 4 wheels, I'd be called a wagon, right? So I look back to that year prior to them going to the Final Four. I think a lot of people believe that they got hosed, right? They should have been in the tournament. They got hosed. They should have been in it. And they look back to, 9 years, 10. This will be the 10th season now, and Frank's only made the tournament once. I obviously wasn't here for the first 3 seasons for Frank, but I feel like there has to be a grace period, especially when it comes to basketball, because, with football, yeah, there's, it's the same deal. You have to get your guys in there, but basketball, I feel like it's more so the case because there's so few players on that roster in comparison to a sport like football and compared to a sport like baseball. So, yeah, to me, you have to give some type of grace period, whether it's Frank, whether it's, any type of college basketball coach. So he was able to get his guys in there, and he was able to develop. He brought a guy like Thornwell here. He was able to bring a guy like P.J. Dozier. I mean, he was able to bring some big-name guys in here. And I think some people, going back to what you mentioned, okay, where's the shooters? You got a guy like A.J. Lawson in here. He just has not been consistent. I mean, here's a guy that going into the beginning of the season, a lot of NBA draft experts have this guy getting drafted, whether in the second round or late in the first round. So, I mean, what are you talking about? They don't have any shooters. They have a shooter. They actually have some pretty good shooters, too, that are just not being able to get their balls to drop right now. They need to be able to make some shots. But, of course, at the end of the day, it's just easy to blame the head coach for everything. Head coach deserves blame when you're losing. I mean, that it comes with the territory. I'm not saying that Frank doesn't deserve any blame here. And I'm not going to say here that I'm sitting here with a picket sign saying, we love Frank. He deserves blame. But at the same time, too, I mean, let's not be idiotic. I mean, we can see what's going on with our eyes. We can see what's going on the court. I mean, is Frank literally supposed to be holding guys' hands, dribbling the ball to them, or kind of like a little kid? Hey, let me lift you up. We'll put the ball in the hoop. Yay, good job, Johnny. I mean, is that what you want Frank to do? Because he can't do that. He needs these guys to be able to make shots. They're on scholarship for a reason. Right.
No, and I totally agree with you. I mean, up until that 2015, 2016 season as well, Mike, to back up all of this, these were the win totals in the SEC. And I'm starting with Dave Odom's tenure, okay? Following Eddie Fogler, 6, 6, 5, 8, 7, 6, 4, 5, 10. The first year that Darren Horn got here. Wow, he had a great tenure. 6, 5, 2, fired. Frank Martin, 4, 5, 6, and then since then 11, 12. He did have the down year after the Final Four run. They had to replace all that. 7, 11, 10, and we have no idea what this year would have looked like. Let me back up more of this. Right now, this is a great tweet. Just got it. Good timing. From Brian Ives. I don't know who Brian is, but this is a hell of a study session he did here. None of the 13 winningest programs in D1 history are currently ranked in the AP poll. None. Not one of them. Crazy. That just goes to show you that this year Carolina is not immune from the wackiness that is going on this year.
And I think the most challenging part for fans is to look at this year and to separate it from the other years, and I understand where the frustration comes from, because it's easy to look at what has took place over the last almost decade now. But what can you really say? I mean, you can go across, especially Power 5 schools, go across the country and tell me how many games South Carolina has missed in comparison to some of these other schools.
Yep. Right.
I mean, if it's not number one, they're definitely in the top 5. And let me know of those other schools. So let's say South Carolina is number 1. Go tell me how those other top 5 schools are doing right now. And I mean, I don't know. I could be totally wrong. Maybe some of those schools right now are playing some of the best basketball, but I think that's very unlikely. And if you look at that 5, I'm sure they're not doing so well if you put their records all together. But I mean, I don't know. That's just me thinking out loud right now.
Well, I mean, but there's truth to it. And then, to be fair to this conversation, Mike, I mean, when you look around the SEC at non-traditional basketball powerhouses, okay, Bruce Pearl's done a nice job at Auburn. They're also right now on probation. They can't play in the postseason. Just to remind everybody, they're also 4-7 in the league and 10-10 overall this year, which isn't earth-shattering to me or anybody else. But he's done a nice job. Missouri's finally built themselves back. They got a nice program over there, but they're outside of Kentucky, and I would throw Florida into this.
Yep.
There isn't a powerhouse in this league in basketball. I mean, give me a break, man. I mean, there just isn't one. So, it's the losses that you can't justify. Stetson last year, that year before they went to the Final Four, that might have been your first year covering Carolina. If anybody goes back and remembers that year, they had a hell of a year. There were 2 games that kept them out. That Georgia game in the SEC tournament, which was the 3rd loss of the year to a bad Georgia team, and they lost to a terrible Missouri team that year. Last year, at the end of the season, before the season got canceled, they lost to Vanderbilt on the road in Nashville. You can't explain some of these things, and that's where I think people are frustrated, and I understand that. But fix the problem. Don't just eliminate the whole system and then go out and have rebuilding has been proven. It doesn't work in South Carolina. They've replaced coaches numerous times. It doesn't work. It's not going to give you a different result from where you are right now.
And that's the way you got to look at the situation. What is the issue? What can we do? Is it one of those situations where we can just get some, shout out to Flex Seal, get some Flex Seal and throw it on the boat and fix it? Or do we have to get a new boat altogether, right? So I think when you look at what South Carolina has done since Frank Martin has arrived here, it's been pretty good in comparison to the standard that has been set for the most part since Frank McGuire, hasn't been here. So the way I look at it is you bring a new head coach in, it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time, and especially with where you're at right now in terms of trying to be competing in a school that, like, as you mentioned, I mean, this isn't really doesn't really have the powerhouses in the SEC as a comparison to maybe like the ACC for basketball. But at the same time, too, you got to do everything you can to be able to keep up with it, because if you don't, you're going to fall behind. Yeah. So the way I look at it is, if you're able to address those situations, and I don't know what the answer is. I mean, if I had the answer, I'm sure I'd be getting paid a lot of money, because I would just give the secret formula to Frank. But that's where South Carolina is right now. We've seen it, not just in basketball. We've seen it in other sports. You press the reset button. Sometimes the grass, isn't always greener on the other side. And sometimes, they can set a program back not just a year or two. It can set you back by 3, 4, 5 years. So I don't know. I don't know where the line in the sand has to be drawn in terms of what do we have to do in terms to get better, or what do we have to do in terms of having to decide if we have to move on from Frank. But right now, no, I think Frank is your guy. And I'm interested to see how they finish the year off this year. And then next year, of course, I think, things are going to be much better. Fingers crossed that the COVID situation is kind of, gone altogether.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think folks better be prepared to be living in misery for the next 3 or 4 years if they want to go out and get rid of Frank Barton and hire, I don't know, whoever.
And that's the big. Who would be next?
Yeah, I mean, I know people are knocking on the door of Mike Boynton because he's done a nice job at Oklahoma State, and I totally understand that. But you better be prepared for a rocky ride, whoever you hire, because it's not a quick fix, man. And you know what? It's tweaks that this program needs. It's tweaks. That's it. They don't need a demolition. They just need tweaks. So we'll see. All right, real quick here. The game tomorrow night, Mike, you got Bama rolling into town. Bama the last few weeks or a couple of weeks hasn't been the Bama that we saw to start the season. They just took their first loss of the year in the SEC, which they came all the way back from 25 down against Missouri to only lose by 3. But, for a while there, they were scoring 80, 90, 100 points a game. The last 5, their outputs 81, 70, 61, 78, and 65. What did Frank say in his press conference today referencing this game and what they're going to need to do tomorrow night to keep that Tide offense tamed and be able to have a chance to pull an upset?
Well, just talking about the keys, keep the ball in front of them, because Alabama is a team that likes to drive the ball. They like to go into the paint. They're very good at not only getting to the paint, but they're very good at finishing in the paint. So being able to do everything you can, that's been an area that South Carolina has struggled with, and in large part because they didn't have a career for a couple of games. They don't have Alonzo Frank. They haven't had him in quite some time. They're not going to have him for the rest of the season. So you need to be able to be physical in the paint when they drive, because they are a team that is going to want to drive the basketball. Force them to shoot threes. Do what you kind of did, in that game against Georgia. Force them to go on the outside and have to just chuck everything up, because they love living in the paint. And then obviously on the other end of the court, you just got to make your shots. There's too many missed opportunities that South Carolina had. Not just missed opportunities, open missed opportunities. You need to be able to connect your shots, and you need to be physical off some of these ball screens. Mississippi State, Frank said, more physical when it comes to their ball screens in comparison to a team like Alabama, but they get more creative. They struggle getting off those screens against State. They need to do a much better job against Alabama if they want to give themselves a shot, because, as I said, they'll get creative on the outside, and they want to beat you in the paint. They want to be a physical team down low. Hopefully South Carolina is ready for it, because as Frank mentioned today, as he did after Saturday's game, they got punched in the gut over and over and over against Mississippi State, and they just didn't respond. They need to respond tomorrow night, or this game could get ugly.
Yeah, it certainly could. I still maintain my stance on Alonzo Frank. That is a killer for this team. You just hit the nail on the head, Mike. They aren't physical enough down low. Levesque is a big body. McCreary's a big body, but they've been getting banged up down there. They got to learn how to go right at guys, draw fouls, hit shots, and things like that. They haven't figured it out quite yet in the SEC, which certainly is much more physical than it used to be. All right, brother. What are we paying attention to over the next few days? I know you've got everything covered. Anything special we need to keep our eyes on?
Hopefully I'll be able to announce some of the personal news later this week. I'm just waiting for it. Some of it you can see maybe over the back of my shoulder. I won't say too much other than that. But just keep your eyes peeled. Very excited for this news to come out.
Hey, zoom in over his shoulder.
See, I was debating. I was like, I can blow this up right now, or I'll just leave him on this shot.
No,
I kept it here.
Yeah, we see it. We know what's up. Hey, by the way, we did a best hair contest last week. Who do we give best hair to? Was it Mitchell? Was it Wes?
Oh, my vote was Yuva,
Yuva?
but then also my vote is Flint for the fro. I mean,
yeah.
the fros stick together.
How many points does Wes Mitchell get for best hair? All right, we were judging the guests of our program. How many points should we give Wes? Because he doesn't really have to comb his hair. He just kind of wakes up and it's there like that.
Pissing me off because I told him, because he's a little bit older than me. And I'm just like, I don't understand. You have like the hairline of like a 16-year-old boy. Like, I just don't understand. And like, maybe I didn't word it exactly like that to him. But I'm sure he would laugh if I said that to him. I just told him the other night, it was actually when we went to Village. And I said, dude, you have some great hair. I said, you just got some great lettuce. So it's unbelievable. He's got like a hairline like Field Yates, because Field Yates is another Massachusetts guy.
Yeah.
I've given him crap about it. And he's like, everyone thinks like I'm only like 22 years old on air. Field Yates and Wes Mitchell, I mean, they have like practically the same hairline, 16-year-old boy hairline. And he's probably, I don't know if he's in the green room yet. He's probably hearing this laughing.
He's not in yet.
Okay. But I mean, I say that as a compliment. I hope that I can continue to have a hairline like that. I mean, he just rolls out of bed. He's just ready to go. It's like Johnny Bravo. Just throw a little comb through it. You're ready to go.
I know.
No. See,
I can't do that.
No, hairlines don't stick like that.
No.
It's going away. But when you put the gel in, I mean, it's like every strand is uniquely and individually gelled in place.
It's impressive stuff.
I don't believe it or not. I've got away from the gel. I use clay stuff because it just works better until we get in the summer, and then you switch over to the hairspray. Because just the humidity just absolutely kills it all. Because a lot of these gels and everything's water based, so there's a little information that maybe 90% of your viewers don't care about. But just so they know,
inside TV.
On that note, brother, we'll let you run. Hey, thanks, man. Good stuff as always. Good to hear from you, and we'll talk soon.
I appreciate you guys.
Yes, sir. There you go. Watch Fox's Mike Yuva. All right, 1 o'clock, time for a timeout. The national anthem up next, and then Wes Mitchell will join us here on our show, plus Debbie Antonelli ahead to preview the Gamecocks and the Huskies tonight, and we got breaking news on that game. We'll get to you when we return on the JB and Goldwater Show, protected by Mcfadden Pest Control. Everyone, JB here. Want to tell you about my friends at Mcfadden Pest Control, as we do every day on our program. I love these guys. They've been in business over 40 years, and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days. Always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about Mcfadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risk their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston. Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Low Country. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Low Country. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf team. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now it is my honor to present the national anthem.
JB Goldwater Show. Live, loud, and online.
All right, my good buddy Patrick Davis bringing us back. Final hour on this Monday afternoon. The JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. Make sure you download the JB and Goldwater app. Darren is to the right of your screen. I am to the left. Across all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater. Individually at Sports Media JB and at Darren Goldwater. Thanks to Mike Yuva in that last segment. Debbie Antonelli coming up. She will preview tonight's matchup between South Carolina and UConn. And breaking news in this matchup, it will be a 1-2 in stores. South Carolina has ascended to the top of the women's AP poll, and UConn has jumped a spot as well. They are now ranked right behind the Gamecocks. So 15-1 Carolina, 13-1 UConn at 7 o'clock tonight on Fox Sports 1. I'm excited to break that one down with Debbie coming up here in about 25 minutes. But first, the other guy, these two have speaking of 1-2, they are 1-2 in our hair rankings. Wes Mitchell joining us from Gamecock Central at 1:07 this afternoon. What's up, man?
Hey, what's up, guys?
So I gave you the nod on the hair deal because I feel like you just wake up and your hair looks like that, but Darren gave Yuva the nod.
What?
I know.
Well, I mean, I don't expect anything less from a Washington Nationals fan. Let me say that.
That's right.
I didn't know.
Moving on.
So I didn't know Nationals fans weren't qualified to judge hair. That's part one.
You didn't know that?
And part two, you don't do anything to your hair. So there's nothing that merits it other than like.
I think that's exactly what merits it.
No.
The point.
No, yeah. Well, it's the point for like jealousy and guys that it's great. But if you're going to say that person's got hair, then you got to do something to it. You got to make it special.
Oh.
But I mean, just because Yuva spends 2 hours every morning working on his hair,
I know,
doesn't mean he should win the award.
Right. Who was third? Who do we pick third?
Flint.
No, was it? No, you did. I didn't. I would never give Flint a top 3 in hair. He's got terrible hair.
I don't know then.
I can't remember.
Every show runs together.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was. It wasn't. I don't know. Sorry, Wes. We're not trying to take up all your time here. Welcome aboard, my friend. Wes has probably been swatting off all the message board heroes about Frank Martin over the last couple of days at Gamecock Central. They've come out of the woodworks, certainly. Hey, look. So last night the Bucs win the Super Bowl, and Kobe Smith and Ryan Suckup are getting rings. Do you remember Ryan's recruitment to South Carolina? Do you remember any of that?
Oh God.
Been a while.
Dude, that would have had to have been what, like 16, 17 years ago or something, maybe?
My age. We're 35. How old are you? 30, 34? 33?
I think so.
Young.
I don't remember his recruitment. I remember him coming in as a freshman and people being like, this dude has an absolute cannon of a leg. And that was always the thing you heard, was just this guy just smashes the football. And you always sort of felt like he would be an NFL guy if he if he could remain accurate enough. That's the big thing. NFL kickers, you got to be able to kick it straight, and he's managed to to stick around. And I think this is 12 years in the league for him. First championship, and obviously always heard he was a great guy. Actually has done some work with Parker White as far as sort of mentoring him and helping him on the side, which is cool. So yeah, great moment for him, and then a cool deal obviously for Kobe Smith as well, being on their practice squad.
Yeah, Ryan. So quick note. I don't know if people have realized this or not, but by virtue of playing this year in January, and of course now in the Super Bowl in February, Ryan has now played in parts of 3 decades in the NFL, because his first year was in 2009 with Kansas City, all of last decade, and now this decade he started a new one here.
That's cool. It's almost like cheating to get to 3 decades, but that is cool.
He's on his way to being the next Sebastian Janikowski, except he's not big and fat and bald and
lefty,
smoking cigarettes on the sideline and stuff like that. Yeah, I remember when Ryan, because I haven't seen him in now probably years, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years. But we were buddies at school, and I remember when he came in, and I don't know who, I wanted to say I think we were with Chris Smelly one day, and I hadn't met him yet. And everybody, all the girls I knew, Wes, were like, God, this guy is so handsome, and using a bunch of other words. But Chris kept calling him the leg, and I hadn't put 2 and 2 together yet. And I was like, who the hell is the leg? And then I met Ryan. Ryan is enormous. He's a big dude. He's a real broad shoulder guy, but he was a huge soccer player from Hickory, North Carolina. And he was big. I think he had a bunch of soccer scholarships, and I don't know, something worked out to where he was going to come play for Coach Spurrier, and sure worked out though. I mean, he's been one of the most consistent kickers now for, what you say, 12 years, Wes? In the 12 years? It's remarkable.
Yeah, 12 seasons. He committed to South Carolina on November 9th, 2004. And he was the number 5 kicker in the country, according to Rivals. Was a 3-star guy, which on Rivals rankings for a kicker to get a 3-star rating is actually as high as kickers go, I think. And listed at 6'3", 210 pounds in high school. So dude was always big. And like you said, I was in school at that time as well. The ladies loved some Ryan Suckup.
Yes, they did. Yeah, they did. But it all worked out. He got married to Paige, who's a good girl, and he's now a Super Bowl champion. It's just
good
really
for
cool
him.
Stuff. He used to live here. He had moved down here for a little while. All right, speaking of recruiting, what's going on right now? Obviously, the signing period, Wes, has closed. But keeping up with Gamecock Central, it appears that there are offers flying left and right.
Yeah, what you have to duck around here, I think, because there's just offers flying everywhere. That's sort of been I would say the approach since I don't know, it's been probably the last few weeks. I think they were closing out 2021 with just some final guys, but for the most part, it's been about trying to, I won't say get ahead, because everybody's already recruiting some 2022s, but trying to get rolling on these 2022s, maybe even get rolling on some 23s as well. And I would love to see the board that in the building that has the new offers, because I'd love to see what that number actually is if you had the complete list, because there have been lots of offers going out. Obviously, when you have new coaches at almost every position, they're going to have their approach. They're going to have their own take on who they should offer and how they want to handle the recruiting process. And one thing that sort of is a holdover, I would say, from the previous staff, as far as the structure is just how involved Shane Beamer is. I think that was one thing about Will Muschamp. Nobody could ever knock the effort he put into recruiting as far as being personally involved with these prospects. Some coaches, most of the assistants do the work as far as recruiting goes, but as far as Shane Beamer, man, this guy's he's been getting after it. He's been talking to, I would say, most, if not all, the guys that get new offers, and just is very involved.
What is there? I think every program has some sort of recruiting philosophy. Generally, folks might laugh at that and say, well, the philosophy is just go get the best players, right? But there's a philosophy within that. Where do you find them? What is South Carolina's that you know of, at least?
Yeah, I think that's we're still learning that. I will say it feels like in-state is a huge priority. Every staff says that. Every staff tries to make in-state a priority, but it just feels like they've really sort of canvassed the state here early on, and Beamer has been calling. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard, Beamer talked to this high school coach, Beamer talked to this high school coach, Beamer talked to this. I mean, it seems like he's making his way through, if he hasn't already, the entire state of South Carolina as far as just reaching out and touching base. So it seems like it's going to sort of start in state and then you branch out from there. That's not obviously anything new. Most coaching staff sort of take that approach, but I think we'll start to sort of have a feel for what's different about their approach, what's different about this staff. I will say this, when you have sort of some younger guys or guys that haven't really had a ton, 10 years in the SEC or something like that, there is a certain hunger that comes from sort of still feeling like you have something to prove and still feeling like, you have to show you can do it at this SEC level. And I think you see that in recruiting. These guys are getting after it. They're talking to kids every day. They're sending out new offers every day. And I think this will be a staff we look back on, in a couple of years and say they're really good at connecting with kids and connecting with people.
On Twitter at Wes Mitchell GC, Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central. All right, so Mike Peterson's been in the program for a while. He now knows this state fairly well. Justin Stepp is from the state. He understands it. Certainly, Kimry, we all know his connections. We know Beamer's connections. There are numerous state connections on this. I mean, and the other guys, Jimmy Lindsay. These guys know the state of South Carolina. It's not like they haven't recruited it, but there's more familiarity with the high school programs, probably with those four guys that I just mentioned, including, of course, the head coach, Shane Beamer. Are there new areas, or are there areas in recruiting that maybe are going to kind of come back into the fold? Like, I know at one point in time, Wes, there was South Carolina used to hit on a lot of prospects up there in Virginia, the Maryland area. Of course, I know Marshawn Lloyd's from that area, and they just got him. With some of these new coaches they've brought in, Hardesty, Pete Lembo, Satterfield, Jimmy Lindsay, Clayton White, are they opening up new recruiting territories?
Yeah, I think you sort of have to. I think it was important with the Hardesty hire to get a guy with some North Carolina ties. That state has always been the one you circle and say, if South Carolina is going to be good again, they've got to be able to have some success in North Carolina. Right now, Mac Brown is just hammering teams in the state of North Carolina. UNC is the offer everybody wants. Now, that's a problem if you're South Carolina. That's even a problem if you're Clemson. That's a problem if you're Tennessee. But they can't take everybody, and the state of North Carolina has been up as far as the number of talented guys the last I don't know how many years, but recently there's a lot of players in North Carolina, and they can't take them all. So I think you have to continue to try to get back into that state where you're getting some top guys. And yeah, I think they'll spot recruit. Virginia, clearly, if you're a Beamer, you're going to have some ties up there. Pete Lembo may be able to bring some sort of Northeast connections as well. So I think you're always going to start with in-state, branch out from there, and then you're going to spot recruit different positions or different areas of the country, I should say, where you have connections. And then, I think as far as quarterback, you're always going to just nationally recruit that position. And then, interestingly enough, O-line seems to be a position teams tend to recruit more nationally than other spots. But quarterback, certainly, I think you just you got to just go try to find the best player you can find at that spot and not really get too locked into what area of the country they're from.
Yeah, and Will Muschamp, of course, did that. He brought Ryan Alinsky all the way from
out there,
California.
Yep.
Yeah. I did a little exercise last week, and I went down this roster that we at least know it to be, even though the official roster isn't out for the spring yet, Wes. And I pulled all of your Rivals rankings, not yours specifically, but Rivals itself, the rankings per every single player that is returning to the program, that is coming into the program, transfers, and when they were recruited. Of course, some of them aren't ranked, like Jason Brown. I want to say EJ Jenkins, Jordan Strawn. He didn't have a ranking. He was a walk-on to Georgia State, but kind of a sign. I mean, look. I mean, if you throw for 3,000 yards at the FCS level program, I think that warrants at least a 3-star ranking. When you lead the country in sacks, probably a 3-star ranking, right? Anyways, I did a little exercise, and we kind of had some fun with it on our program with Michael Flynn on Friday. And per Rivals, overall, the talent level on this team, and I know star rankings don't mean everything. We all understand that. But overall, it's about an average of 3.2 per Rivals. Is that good enough to get this program turned around sooner than later?
Ultimately, probably not. I mean, there's talent on this team. It's not like there's no talent.
Right.
There's a reason you have a new coaching staff, in place, though. And that's because obviously you weren't winning enough games the last couple of years. So I don't want to sit here and Beamer has been very, he has very specifically said this is not a rebuild. He doesn't want to start making excuses, it sounds like, before things even get rolling. But are they going to have to continue to add talent to this roster if they're going to compete for the SEC East? Absolutely. And I think there is a sense, I see this on Twitter all the time. I see this on the Insiders Forum all the time. And this is not a shot at any kid on that roster by any means. But when people say, oh, there's talent on this team, it's just the coaching. Or, oh, there's talent, why can't South Carolina win more games? Should they have probably won more games the last couple of years? You can make that argument. Should they have competed for the SEC East with their talent on this roster? I don't think so. I mean, the problem is you are going to be compared with the other teams within your division. South Carolina, even though they beat Georgia 2 seasons ago, Georgia has way more depth and way more top-end talent. Florida has more depth and more top-end talent. You're always going to be compared to the other team within your division. So I don't think I can't sort of honestly sit here and say, yeah, fans, there's enough talent right now. South Carolina should be competing for the East. You have to have difference makers. Can anybody sit here and say there's the talent on this roster right now that you could honestly compare it to the talent on the roster in 2011, in 2012, in 2013? If you're a Carolina fan, you look in the mirror, it does, there's not the difference makers here that were there then. The job for this staff and for Shane Beamer, and again, that's no fault of this current staff at all. The job is to get it to that point by recruiting guys and by developing. The good thing is you do have in what would be the upcoming sort of sophomore class. I guess they're still freshmen technically with the new NCAA rules, but there's some young talent within that class that can be developed and can be benchmark type guys within this program. Then you have to just keep adding to them, if that makes sense.
Yep. Well, and that's where I was going with this next, because what you were saying was they don't have those difference makers, and I'm kind of adding on to that is they don't have those difference makers yet. Like we don't know if they're there or not. I mean, they recruited Marshawn Lloyd, they recruited Jordan Birch. Mm-hmm. It's time for Zach Pickens to step up and do something. I think there are guys there who we feel like are capable, but we haven't seen that yet, Wes. And I think that's a fair point to make. In making that point, I'll make another one. They'll have 33 combined players between both lines of scrimmage this year, 33. And if you look back over the last few years, I think there could be an argument that the most well-recruited, at least per rankings, position on the team, what is the defensive line? I mean, you got a bunch of guys who were quote 4- and 5-star guys coming out of high school. And I know if you just watched the 2020 season, you go, well, now wait a second, they were terrible, and you wouldn't be wrong in saying that. It was just not a good year there. But knowing that you have, I think, 9 guys returning who've started at least a game on the offensive line, I think 16 offensive linemen total, 2 5-star guys on the defensive line. You get your all-SEC guy, JJ Nigbari, returning. You can't be bad in the trenches in the SEC. If you aren't elite in the trenches of the SEC, you don't win, period. Where do you think they stand as spring practice is a few weeks away? both there on the offensive and defensive lines.
Yeah, there's certainly something to work with on both sides of that. I think you look offensive line, they've got to get better in pass protection. But you can get better, and some of that is on play calling, some of it is on getting the ball out faster. It's not an easy answer. There's all these variables that play into why things sort of play out the way they do. Defensive front, yes, they've recruited very well. You're going to need your sort of older guys to lead the way there, and for your younger guys to step forward, with another full year in the program. So those, and my only point in what I'm saying is that compare those positions then still to what you're facing with Georgia.
Right.
Whatever spot, if we're going to talk about South Carolina's defensive line, what did Georgia bring in the same time span? What does Georgia's offensive line look like right now? It's like all 4- and 5-star guys a lot of times. So you're constantly going to be compared to the teams you're having to face year in, year out. And that, to me, I mean, obviously the recruiting rankings are not the end-all be-all of talent. Ultimately you're going to have to evaluate and develop and find transfers and stuff like that. And for South Carolina, if this team is going to outperform the expectations this coming year, clearly it's going to have to start on the defensive line with those guys. You look at the questions at linebacker and DB. D-line is going to have to carry the way on defense. On the offensive side, your offensive line and your running backs, great running back core for Monterio Hardesty to take over there. Kevin Harris, Marshawn Lloyd, Rashad Amos showed some things last year. You got a guy I'm very high on in Juju McDowell coming in. You have some strong talent at tight end, I think, as well. So there are pieces to work with. So many times we get caught up in sports in just this sort of, yes or no, in that, well, does South Carolina have talent? It's not a yes or no answer. It's some spots are in a better spot than others. If you were playing, group of 5 competition every week, then you say, wow, this South Carolina team is super talented.
Right.
But then if you're playing the SEC every week, you're going to say, well, comparatively, there are some nice players on this team, but are there enough of them? That's why there's a new staff in town, I think.
The last couple, and I know we only have a minute or two left here, the last couple of running backs coaches at South Carolina have, of course, moved on to the NFL for the right reasons. They're great coaches, great evaluators of talent, great developers, and Thomas Brown and Des Kitchings. We don't know yet. It's to be seen. I've watched the guy play, haven't necessarily followed his coaching career, but how do you place Monterio Hardesty right now, newly named running backs coach, former Tennessee Vol, great, had a hell of a year in 2009, ran all over South Carolina in Halloween. How do you place him into this mix as far as a developer and a recruiter based on early returns that you've heard?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're obviously projecting there a little bit because he hasn't had the chance to do it yet at the SEC level. But you're talking about a guy, obviously, based on some other reporting and what we've heard as well. Tennessee, those guys were high on him as well. They were talking to him about coming onto their staff. South Carolina lands him on its staff. And this is a guy I've talked to multiple high school coaches. I talked to a former teammate of his, infectious personality, super positive dude, considered an up-and-comer, a fast riser in the coaching community. And you have to have that at the running back spot. You have to have a guy with a really good personality that connects with people. That position has to be a recruiter. I think we're going to see Hardesty show that that's what he is, that he can be that. And I think the North Carolina ties there are big as well. This is a kid or not a kid, but he was a kid from New Bern, North Carolina, which is over near Havelock, where Farrah Cooper and Corey Robinson and those guys are from. Obviously, he was at Charlotte for a couple of years now, building some ties there. So important to have those North Carolina ties because Des Kitchings is someone that just honestly knew everybody, and everybody knew Des. So You're talking about one of those people that just has connections everywhere.
Right.
That's tough to replace, but Hardesty is someone that in time, I believe will be a very strong hire and is one of these just young, up and coming, rising type coaches.
Final question here. What have you heard maybe over the last week or two? Obviously, they're in the middle of workouts. I love the fact that Shane Beamer set spring practice this year for spring. That's nice. Coastal's about to wrap up spring practice, quote, spring practice. What have you heard over the last week or two with this team as they've gone through workouts? Any early returns on how things are going in the building?
Yeah, I think the vibe has been good from what I've heard. You usually hear that this time of year, to be completely honest and frank. But, everybody seems to – I shouldn't say everybody. That's probably the early returns on Luke Day are very, very positive. This guy's the real deal. And positive is the word – that's the word of the day right now, I think. It's that they want to keep sort of a – flush everything that's happened the last couple of years, keep things, just positive, push forward, not a lot of sort of, there's multiple ways you can coach up a group. Some coaches sort of lean towards negative reaction to things. Some coaches are more like, hey, let's love on them and build them up. There's been a lot of building up. The vibe in the room has been good. And the interesting thing is these transfers, a lot of them have come in with the right mindset, with the right attitude. You look at Amarian Brown, you look at Jason Brown, you look at EJ Jenkins, you look at those guys. Debo Williams, this guy's a workout warrior. You look Marshawn Lloyd and Luke Doty. Those two guys are super close. They're in the weight room at all times together. Debo Williams has sort of added into that it's now a trio. And those guys sort of, I feel like those guys push the buttons for everybody else. And as far as setting the expectation for how hard you have to work.
Wes Mitchell, Gamecock Central. I can't tell you to wait till 2 o'clock to check out GC Live. They already went on the air 12 o'clock today. You missed it. If you just woke up, you'll have to go back and watch it. What time are you going to be on tomorrow?
No show tomorrow. Wednesday, probably noon again.
Okay.
And but you can always go listen to the podcast. Just go to any podcast platform and type in Gamecock Central, and it'll pop up. You can listen to it whenever you want on the car ride home from work today.
Yeah, why would you do that when you could look at Wes's great hair? Well, don't do that. Watch
the number 2 hair, apparently.
No,
it depends on who's ranking. According to me, yes.
Yeah. Not me, Wes. I got you, man. I
appreciate that, Jamie.
Birds of a garnet and black feather flock together. You know what I'm saying? So I got you. No problem. Brother, thanks so much. Really good stuff there, certainly. I actually just looked and noticed that you had put out some notes this morning on Montario Hardesty, and I would encourage folks to head to Gamecock Central, a lengthy report on him. You added some great quotes in there from guys who are very relevant to this conversation. Certainly, it's a great piece to read, so folks check that out. And Wes will have you back next week, as always.
All right, thanks, guys. You have a good one.
Yes, sir. You too. Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central. Thanks to our friends at Mcfadden Pest Control, because they protect my home and they keep the bugs out. And when my little 2-year-olds are running around dropping crumbs everywhere, which they've been doing every day for God knows how long.
Oh, they're only 2. Just wait till they're moving around faster and bigger.
Yeah. Well, at least no roaches are trying to gather them.
That's true.
We're protected. Mcfadden Pest Control has been protecting little kids for over 40 years. Mcfadden Pest Control.com for more. Owned by Heath Gunther. Mcfadden Pest Control in the Low Country. They are the best. They're locally owned and operated, and we've been using them for over 3 years. You should too. McFaddenPestControl.com. All right, coming up next tonight, 1 and 2 in Storrs, Connecticut. UConn hosting top-ranked South Carolina. Debbie Antonelli, nobody out there better to break this one down than her, and she'll join us right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
Is your old car really scary? Does it look dreadful or smell awful? Don't be frightened. There's never been a better time to trade in your spooky old car. Stokes Volkswagen just received a new shipment of the VW Atlas and VW Crossport. But here's what makes that even sweeter. Every new Atlas and Crossport is $3,000 off MSRP. Plus, every 2020 Volkswagen is available with 0% financing. That's right. You get both the huge discount and 0% financing. So if you want to play trick or treat at other dealerships, that's okay. Come see us at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or visit StokesVW.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Plus tax tag includes $3.99.50 closing fee. Offer subject to lender approval. Expires month end.
What's up, everyone? JB here. Want to tell you about my friends at Mcfadden Pest Control, as we do every day on our program. I love these guys. They've been in business over 40 years, and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days. Always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about Mcfadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
Family Bingo Night is back. All 3 Dog and Duck locations. Every Monday from 6 to 8 is the perfect time to bring the kids, have dinner, and play bingo. They've upped the prizes with retail store gift cards, gas cards, in-house cash cards, and kid-friendly gift cards like Nintendo, pizza, App Store, and more. Thanks for supporting local businesses like the Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
What's up, everybody? This is South Carolina singer-songwriter Patrick Davis, and I might live in Nashville, Tennessee now, but guess what?
Hey, buddy, I'm not paying you to hear your thoughts on life. I'm paying you to sing.
Well, I have a microphone, and you don't.
So you will listen to every damn word I have to say! You are the worst wedding singer in the world, buddy.
Sir, one more outburst, I will strangle you with my microphone wire. You understand me?
You are listening to my friends JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
All right, 1:36, final segment, Monday afternoon. Welcome back. JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. It's Monday. Fill your tummies up at DV's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. DV'sCheesesteaks.com for their entire menu. Don't forget
Boardwalk fries.
Boardwalk fries. They come with the Old Bay seasoning. My favorite, of course, the buffalo chicken cheesesteak at DV's, DV'sCheesesteaks.com. We got some more hoops to get to and some baseball news to get to before we get out of here as well. But first, tonight now, the breaking news of the hour from the Associated Press. The new top 25 is out on the women's side, and South Carolina has ascended to 1 and UConn up to number 2. And that means tonight at 7 o'clock on Fox Sports 1 from Stores, Dawn Staley and Gino Auriemma will put the top 2 ranked programs on the court against each other. And Debbie Antonelli is going to tell you all about it, and I couldn't think of a human on earth who I'd rather have discuss this game than her. Hey, Debbie, thanks for – this is back-to-back weeks. We're excited to have you again.
I feel so lucky that you guys included me on your show in back-to-back weeks. Thank you so much.
No, we
truly an honor.
You make us better. It's not the other way around. All right, so Debbie, you've got a big call tonight too. We're going to get to that one in a minute, but I did see on Twitter, you posted on Twitter that you ranked South Carolina number 1, and with your vote, and of course they are number 1 now, and UConn is number 2. What is it about South Carolina that you thought, well, you know what, they deserve to be number 1 at least until Monday night? We'll see what happens.
Well, honestly, I had them at number 2 until NC State lost yesterday, and then when NC State got upset by North Carolina, I moved South Carolina to number 1. And you know, look, Dawn Staley's got a great team. It's just that NC State had beaten them earlier, and NC State had won over Louisville earlier in the week, and so nobody has beaten 2 number 1s on the road. It's only happened like 3 times in the history of the last 20 years. So South Carolina didn't get it by default, though. They certainly are a deserving number 1, and I certainly thought so. And they've got great balance. Aaliyah Boston on the inside. Their guard plays good enough. Aaliyah Boston, you have to two-way plan for on both sides of the ball because she's that dangerous. And I think they've got enough balance. I think their length and athleticism will be something that UConn doesn't typically see, and I think that could be an interesting point to keep an eye on.
Well, UConn's got another freshman sensation in Paige Beckers tonight, and she seems unstoppable. What does it take to stop her? What type of challenge can South Carolina present to the young guard?
Well, guys, she's challenging. I mean, she's the next, right? I mean, she's a phenom, freshman, back-to-back 30-point games. Wants to take the big shots. She's got size, about 5'10", long. But when they played Tennessee, the length of Tennessee and the physicality bothered her a little bit. You don't see a lot of that in the Big East. They certainly didn't see it in the American Athletic Conference. Now they're in the Big East. It's going to be a different challenge for her. Dawn Staley has multiple defenders that she can put on her. She can go small and fast. She can go long and athletic with size. I think Lily Grissett has gotten better at chasing shooters off screen. So I'm looking for a player like that with 6'2", 6'3" length, maybe to bother her vision and maybe affect the number of shots she gets. But she's a really good player. She's going to have the ball in her hands. And South Carolina is going to have to counter by scoring points in the paint, using their size and muscle up front. UConn doesn't have the same size or depth, but they might have better shooters. So it's not a classic, matchup of big and strong versus shooters and quickness. It's a little bit of a blend of both, which makes it really exciting. And this would be the 60th time in our game that 1 and 2 have met in the regular season.
Wow. And last year, South Carolina got their first win ever against UConn. Of course, that game was played in Columbia. This one back in Stores. Well, has there been a game on the Gamecocks schedule this year, Debbie, that you've seen that maybe has presented a similar challenge to what they will see tonight?
When you play Kentucky, they have Ryan Howard, and she's such a prolific scorer. I think Paige Beckers kind of brings that mentality, can make every shot, misses one, is going to make the next one, not afraid of the big moment. But South Carolina has won 28 consecutive SEC regular season games, and 13 of those 28 in that streak have been against ranked opponents. Last year, you referenced the UConn game. That was a big rung on the ladder, right? You get past that UConn thing, that monkey on your back. You hadn't beaten them. Dawn hadn't beaten them. And I thought I called that game. South Carolina dominated that game. The environment in Colonial Life was one of the best I've been in a long time. It was just crazy in there that night. And it was really fun to call that game. And I would think this game's going to have all the makings of a classic towards the end. I think South Carolina, is going to have to be able to get it to the fourth quarter, which I think they can on the road. I think their physicality up front and their way they rebound. Aaliyah Boston is going to have to be aggressive, and the center for UConn, her name is Olivia Nelson-Ododo, and I think she could get into some foul trouble. Well, we'll see. I mean, that's a big matchup to keep your eye on the inside, and then multiple defenders guarding Paige Beckers for UConn.
Debbie, not the last game, certainly against Auburn. South Carolina got off to a pretty good start there, and they finished fine. But there have been games, and they're in the middle of a incredible winning streak. They haven't lost it since that upset by NC State. It was an upset at the time, 54-46. Golly, it feels like a year ago. But there have been games. There have been challenges for South Carolina in the first quarter, second quarter. I'd say first half of games. I mean, you look at Alabama, you look at that LSU game. There have been some challenges where they've gotten into the locker room. I think we talked about this a little bit last week. Dawn gets them regrouped. They come back out. They play well in the second half. Can they afford a slow start tonight?
Well, to that example, that's a void of a Ty Harris on the floor or on the team, somebody who can, get everybody, get their focus where it needs to be. You can't afford a lapse like that against UConn. And I always say you can't make back-to-back mistakes against them because they can go on a run. You come down, miss a shot, then you miss a closeout, they score. Then you go back down and you make a mistake, they come back down. Now all of a sudden they go on a 4 or 5 or 6-0 run. The one thing about the pandemic that has, because there's no fans in the stands, that has changed a couple of things is when teams do go on that 8-0 run, you don't see coaches calling timeouts as often. Usually that was kind of the typical indicator that, the other team goes on a run, you call a timeout. But you can actually hear and speak and teach and coach your team without having to call a timeout. If you have a veteran team, and I would consider Dawn, even though they look like they're young, they've got some experience. And these Aaliyah Boston and Bree Beal and Destiny Henderson and Zaya Cook, they all have experience with wins over Connecticut. So they're not going in there thinking they can't win. And here's the other thing too. Dawn Staley has spent the last week with the USA national team training in Columbia.
Right.
And so she's had star power on campus all week. And I can't imagine that hasn't carried over to her team. The detail, the execution, the professionalism with which those players show up. And I think that's the way her team will show up on tonight. It'll be a professional opportunity for them to put their best game on showcase.
Are the Gamecocks allowed to practice against or with the national team when they're in town, or
No.
just watching?
No, you don't want to do that.
Well,
you're trying to build confidence, guys. You're trying to build confidence.
Figured
there'll be no opportunity. I'm sure they watched. I'm sure they watched practice and they were around them, but they're not going to, I don't know. I mean, if Zia Cook got a chance to spend some time with Sue Bird, then that's probably a good thing. But I can't imagine that they actually did anything like physical.
Yeah.
And plus with COVID, I'm not sure they're allowed to be around each other anyway.
Debbie, how do you compare Gino and Dawn? Their styles, their personalities as coaches in the win game. How do you compare those two?
Wow, you know what? No one has ever asked me that. I mean,
No.
I think first of all, they're incredibly competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they both have an incredible chip on their shoulder. I think they both feel disrespected all the time, and that's the way they act. And when they're around their teams, they demand a high level of discipline and execution, and it's not anything they don't demand of themselves. And so I feel like, as competitive and as much as they've both won, of course, nobody's won 11 championships and been to 20 Final Fours. Gino, is holding on to the holy grail of how you do it. And you know what? It's every time you play UConn, because of the way they play and how disciplined they are and how much they execute, how well they shoot the ball and how well they move it, you have to get better by having the experience of preparing for them and playing against them. And each time you play them, I think you get a little bit closer to beating them. We saw that last year with Dawn, but their personalities have a lot of similarities. A lot of positives about the way they approach the game and about the way they prepare their team.
I think it's fascinating what we've watched over the last, I'd say 5 or 6 years in particular, because, when you look at the UConn roster, you look at the South Carolina roster, like UConn has players from 8 states and 3 countries right now. South Carolina gets players from everywhere. How often are they head-to-head with some of these top players? Is this just a formality now that if you're a top 10, top 15 player, more than likely UConn and South Carolina are both banging on your door?
I think it depends, like if you think about our game, like not counting last year because we didn't have the championship, but, the last 5 years has been a different winner. And that's impressive. We haven't had anybody win back-to-back or go on a streak. We've had that during the course of our game over history, where a team has won 2 in a row or they've won, 4 in a row. UConn, of course, with the Brianna Stewart 4 years, won 4 in a row. When he's had the best player or the number one recruit, he's been really good. The years that he hasn't, they haven't won. Now he's got the best player again, and she's really good. And they have a chance. I mean, you can't count them out. There's no way. You can't pick against UConn on a chance to go to the Final Four. Now, in this game tonight, there's pieces of the game where Dawn can win. Let's see if they can impose their will and take advantage of what their strengths are. If they can do that, then they have a chance to win up at Connecticut, which is not an easy task.
Number 1, number 2 tonight, South Carolina, newly named number 1 again. They will be in stores to take on the second-ranked Huskies, 7 o'clock, Fox Sports 1. Also at 7 p.m. It's a great night to do the split-screen stuff on TV, because ESPN2, you'll be able to hear Debbie's voice. She'll call the game from Charleston, but it's being played in Eugene, Oregon, 11th-ranked Oregon, 10th-ranked Arizona. Tell us about this matchup. I know they've already seen each other once this year, and earlier this year it wasn't very good for Oregon. They were defeated by 16 points on the road at Arizona, but they get this one at home, looking to return a favor tonight.
Well, it's great. It's a big game on the network tonight. We're very excited about ESPN2 at 7 o'clock. A couple of Pac-12 teams that are really solid. Pac-12 has 4 teams ranked in the top 11. They're very good again this year. Very, very balanced league as always. The first time Oregon didn't play well. Arizona's very defensive minded. They've got an All-American named Ari McDonald. She's lightning quick and is committed to playing defense. She was an All-American last year. And it should be a fun game. I mean, it's I'll call any game, guys. You know that. I mean, I want to work every night. I'll call any game. If there was a 5th grade game that I could get on the live stream, I'd do it. It's so fun to do what we get to do, and this game will be fun to call just because it gives me a chance to step outside of the norm for me. The SEC men, ACC women, or East Coast basketball, and get a chance to spend a lot of time concentrating on how good the Pac-12 is, and that's fun.
It is very good because in this stretch for Oregon, this starts a difficult stretch for them. They've got every chance in the world to really move up and make a statement in women's basketball. After this, they do have Cal, which Cal has not played well this year at all. They're 0-13, 0-10 in the league. But after that, it's Stanford, who's currently 5th in the country, and then they're on the road at, I think it's 8th-ranked UCLA now. So the Ducks certainly have an interesting and difficult stretch in front of them. Debbie, at the end of the day, they're going to be in the tournament. South Carolina's going to be in there. UConn, all these teams I just mentioned, they're all going to be in the dance, and they're going to be dancing in San Antonio, Texas, all of them in one area this year. For a long time, you have been advocating to take the women's, at least the Sweet 16, to Las Vegas. Is this a step in the right direction to be able to one day accomplish something like that?
13 years of platforming and campaigning and trying to get people to understand why a format change would be so important and impressive and such a wow factor for the women's game. And COVID strikes and the pandemic comes, and this is how we're going to do it. So I think it's a step in the right direction to take a peek. The other thing that I'm very pleased about, which would all be a part of a format change, is that finally, for the first time, the women's game is going to be seeded on an S curve, which means geography is not a part of any metric that we'll use to decide what the seeds are. And that's important in our game because our players and our coaches deserve it. They have worked hard to put the product in a position where it can get the S curve. So that's one thing I'm really pleased about. And speaking of a little bracketology, I'm sure you guys talk about it on the men's side. What you need to know about the women's side is if South Carolina win or lose, they'll stay on the 1 line, according to bracketologist Charlie Cream. And if UConn gets blown out, they could be subject to getting knocked off the 1 line. So That's the news to report on bracketology and the S curve and San Antonio for the women's tournament.
Wow. That's interesting. Carolina, UConn, Louisville, NC State, will those be the ones right now?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there, how about A&M? Because they're sitting here at 18-1.
Oh, yeah.
I think they got the most wins in the country thus far. And they've got South Carolina at the end of the season. They host the Gamecocks in College Station. What do you think about the Aggies sitting there at number 6?
Well, I love them. I've liked them all year. I've had them in my top 10 from almost, I think, the first poll. The thing that scares me, though, is you go 18-1, that's 19 games. They haven't been on a pause yet. And so that's what we sort of feel. That's what hits me in the gut, because I think they're a Final Four caliber team. I think they're a dark horse to make it. Right now, they would be on the 2 line, and that's a good spot for them because they could do some damage there. They've got balance, experience. They've got shooters. They've got rebounders. They play D. They shrink the game. They're very, very talented. Of course, Gary Blair, he's been around forever, and he's a Hall of Fame coach. He's done a fantastic job. I like them a lot. The SEC right now would have 8 teams, according to Charlie Cream. The ACC would have 9 to have the most.
Wow.
I know we got to let you run here, but before we do that, you just saw Patrick play up at Emory and Henry. Is it the first time you've seen him play this year?
Yeah.
Well, we watched him on a live stream on his first game, which was on the road, but that was a chance to go up there and, no spectators are allowed, guys. I was able to use my, quote, media credentials to get into the building. And I told my husband, Frank, that if there was a chance I could get in, that I would ditch him in a hot second, which is exactly what I did. And I drove up there and went to the game, and he got his first career start. And I didn't know it. It was a surprise. And, they're 0-2 to start the season, but hopefully they'll get a few more games in. D3 is a lot different than D1, but he is loving it, and he's doing really well. Thanks for bringing it up.
Good.
Yeah, I saw the video because he got up in pregame.
Yeah, he did.
He got up and slammed one home. He's what, 5'11", right?
5'11", about $155, and he has worked his fanny off. And he was not dunking when he graduated from Bishop England, but he's dunking now because he put the time in and he made himself a better athlete. And you guys know how skilled he is. So I'm excited to see what will happen for him.
Well, I mean, I in watching that video, because I haven't seen him since we were at your house last year for Nothing But Net, but in watching that video, he looked thicker. He looked like he'd hit the weight room.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah. He's been working,
Yeah, that's great.
He's been working. It's fun. It's fun to watch him because it's all on him. There's not anything that we did except for try to provide a positive, encouraging environment and not saying you got to do this or that. I'm not that parent. If he wants me to rebound for him, I'll go out in the driveway and rebound. But usually he doesn't ask. So it's all on him. It's his. He wanted to become the best player he could become, and he put the time in.
Nice. Fantastic. Debbie, it was wonderful to speak with you. Thank you so much. Great insight into tonight's hoops. And we just need to keep doing this. We'll figure out a time to get you back in here sooner than later, certainly, because your insight is better than anybody else we could ever ask for. So thank you so much.
Well, can't wait, guys. Last time I was on, South Carolina was the game that we were previewing on the men's side, and they won.
Yeah.
So maybe this is a good omen for South Carolina fans listening tonight.
Yeah. Well, maybe we need to have you on tomorrow. Yeah, there's fans. They're
fans.
Never. We'll leave it there. Leave that there. Thanks, Debbie.
Okay, thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Yes, ma'am. Debbie Antonelli tonight. She'll be on the call. ESPN2, Oregon, and Arizona, of course, also at 7 o'clock, South Carolina and UConn. By the way, quick note on that game. Dawn Staley is 8 wins away from 500 in her career coaching. Clearly, if she wins tonight, that'll be 7. There's 7 games left in the regular season as the schedule stands now. So more than likely at some point in time this year, Dawn's going to hit 500 in her career. Remarkable. Remarkable stuff. All right, some other hoops notes I want to make sure we mention before we get out of here in just a couple of minutes. But former Gamecock point guard Mike Boynton and his Oklahoma State Cowboys upset 6th-ranked Texas this weekend. Texas was one of 2 teams that lost twice this past week. The AP Top 25 this past week had 17 total losses in it.
Whoa.
17.
I didn't catch that.
15 teams total lost games. Iowa and Texas, the 2 that lost multiple ball games. Also, Missouri, of course, upset Alabama this past weekend. Only dropped Alabama 1 spot to number 11. That's where they'll be tomorrow night when they come to Columbia. Tennessee went in there and beat Kentucky. Kentucky 5-12, 4-6 in the league this year. Not at all good. Off the radar basketball note for everybody. Valparaiso beat Drake.
Yep.
It was Drake's first loss of the year. This coming weekend, Valpo has a Saturday-Sunday series, Saturday-Sunday versus the same team, and it's 12-1 in the league. Loyola Chicago, who is now new to the top 25, ranked 22nd in the country. Drake is 9-1 in Missouri Valley. Loyola, as I mentioned, 12-1. That's going to be a really great off-the-radar basketball series coming up this weekend.
It stinks that there won't be fans because those 2 teams have tremendous followings in their arenas. I did a game at Loyola about 2 years ago. Place can jump. Yeah. I mean, it's a great place.
Isn't that what's her name? Jean?
Sister Jean.
Sister Jean. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cougs doubled up on Towson this weekend. They're now 7-8, 5-3 in the CAA. Citadel got revenge on Western Carolina, 10-7, 3-7 now in the SoCon. Wofford beat their rivals Furman, now 9-3 in the SoCon. Coastal upset by South Alabama on the road. They dropped to 2nd in the Sun Belt East. Of course, Clemson had a 17-point win over Syracuse. We all knew that. Now 3 of 4 that they have won. They've got Georgia Tech coming up Friday, looking for revenge against the Yellow Jackets. All remaining games on the Tigers schedule, by the way, are teams that are behind them in the ACC standings. Don't forget also, we'll talk about it more this week, but FCS spring football kicks off on Saturday.
Yeah.
McNeese State and Tarleton State. So a couple of parting shots. And also, what day is today on the Handy Dandy National Day calendar? It's National Boy Scouts Day.
I was never a Boy Scout.
I wasn't either.
I was in the
I was for like a month, and
I was in Indian Guides. I think Indian Guides was kind of the knockoff version.
Well, all the Boy Scouts, you're the best. Date the girls and sell the cookies. National Iowa Day. Anybody know anybody in Iowa?
Well, maybe they can win some basketball games because they used to not lose.
Yeah. Is it windy in Iowa?
It can be.
Maybe it's a good day to fly a kite. It's National Kite Flying Day.
All right. It's been windy around here lately.
It's also, Darren, National Clean Out Your Computer Day.
I got to do that a lot.
I know you. And most importantly, as it pertains to the Super Bowl, it is National Football Hangover Day.
That's fair.
That is more than fair.
That's one of the most realistic national days on the calendar since
right.
we've started doing this.
National Football Hangover Day. But remember, football season is not over because the FCS boys are fired up, ready to go, and they'll be kicking the gridiron coming up on Saturday. And then next Saturday, February the 20th, in the state, Furman, Wofford, and South Carolina State are all going to be
Coming soon.
Getting spring football rolling. So. Good stuff. Thanks to Mike Yuva from Watch Fox, Wes Mitchell from Gamecock Central, Debbie Antonelli from literally everywhere. And thanks to all of you, and of course, my good buddy Darren Goldwater for all of his hard work.
You too.
We are back tomorrow. We got another baseball preview tomorrow. I can't remember who it is, but we have one.
It'll be interesting.
It will be. We got Gene Sapikoff tomorrow. We got Mike Morgan coming up this week. Got a big day with J.C. Sherbert. You're going to want to hear something about Joe Brady in that conversation on Wednesday. Oh, yeah. Carolina fans will like it. I promise you. Have a marvelous and finally sunny Monday afternoon. JB and Goldwater returns tomorrow at noon. We'll see you then.